It's obviously, you know, I grew up here in Austin. I've never seen anything like this before in terms of a weather disaster. It's something else. And there's been a lot of people without power for a long time. I know that me and then my parents who live next door to me were out of power, I think, for around 50 hours. And I understand there are people out of power for even longer than that. And there's also people without water right now. So it's a very tense situation for a lot of folks. A lot of folks are enduring incredible hardships right now. And we're working on everything that we can to address that.
Judge, we have Commissioner Howard back.
Oh, we do? Okay, great. Commissioner Howard, you can hear?
I can hear.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so we will move back to the agenda, and I think I had a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Shea, a second by Commissioner Gomez for the consent items C1 through C4. All those in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. Next, we have other consent items. And I will read those out now. Item 2, item 3, item 4, item 6, item 7, item 8, item 10, item 11, item 12, item 13, item 14, item 15, item 16, item 17, item 18, item 20, item 21, item 22, item 23, and item A1. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Gomez and a second from Commissioner Shea for approval. Audrey or Nate, are you on today, and do we have any callers on these items?
Hi, Judge. Yes, this is Audrey today. We don't have any callers that are wanting to make a comment, but we do have Commissioner Mike Howe on the line if anyone has any questions.
He's available for the ESD 17 issue, which I think was on consent, and he's a resource if anyone had any questions.
Okay. I do not have any questions. Other commissioners, do you have any? Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of passing the consent?
Judge Brown, I have a question about item 11.
Still need to boil their water this morning.
Okay. So you want to take it off the agenda or off the consent agenda?
If staff could answer a question, I probably can consent, but I need to raise a question.
Okay. What's your question?
And can I just ask, are the people hearing an announcer in the background talking about boil water notices? Can we somehow stop that, the secondary feed? It's a news feed. Media.
Yeah, I hear that too. Okay.
Mike, that's right there.
No, it's still going. Let's pause for a minute.
This Friday morning. The bad news is that Austin Water is saying that this will be a multi-day process to get water restored to everyone. We don't have a timeline for when.
Do you think media knows that we're pausing so they can discontinue that news feed in the background?
Yeah.
Hear us or how they're connected.
Audrey, are you able to manage that?
For some context, usually at this time of year.
I can mute
Water a day. So
I'm not sure which.
I don't think it's. Yeah.
I'm not sure where it's coming from.
If you're on the call, I'll see there's a lot of staff on this call too. Can you double check that you're muted? I'm not sure where that news is coming from. Okay. There you go. I think it's off now. Thank you, Commissioner Shea. Does it sound like it's off? Okay, great. So item number 11, is there staff available to answer a question from Commissioner Howard on item 11?
This is a bond project on Thomas Springs Road. And I know that we've been talking to the neighbors and to county staff about the scope of the work. And so I wanted to make sure that it's prudent to approve the modifications listed today. while we're still working on other perhaps modifications in the near future.
Yes, and this is David Greer. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director, so I can answer that question if you like.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We are still looking at alternative ways to save a few more trees and maybe close in some of the drainage. But this mod is, it can still move forward. We wouldn't need to not approve this mod because it's stuff that's the basis for all the additional analysis we would need anyway. It's just expanding the limits of where we're doing our right of way, and some information that's needed for our right of way documents. There's additional information we're going to want nowadays before we proceed with right of way. So these items that are in the mod will still be usable and won't be wasted if we go with a different approach.
Commissioner Howard, you're muted.
Thank you, David. You know, I'm surprised that every modification is so expensive when the county's entered into, you know, big dollar contracts to do the work. And it's not just TNR contracts. I'm not picking on you. I'm just learning how things work and sort of channeling, you know, the need to save every penny. And I'm just sort of dumbfounded that, you know, little changes cost tens of thousands of dollars. And so I'll be looking to learn more about how we contract and you know, I've just never experienced this before. So I'll keep learning, but I'm glad to know we can move forward today, and we're still looking at drainage and trees and stuff along Thomas Springs Road. Thank you.
That's correct. Thank you.
And I will just echo what Commissioner.
So commissioners, if we're going to have further discussion about item 11, we might want to pull it from consent.
It's not for discussion. It's really just to acknowledge I share her concerns, and there have been a lot of concerns from the community as well on this project. So we don't need to pull it from me.
Okay, Commissioner Howard, are you good?
I'm good and ready to vote.
Awesome, thanks. So we have I'm sorry, Amory, I don't remember. Did we get a motion from Gomez and a second from Shea on this one? I believe so. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so all those in favor of approving the items that I read out to be passed on consent, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you, that passes unanimously. Okay, so next up is item number 1, public hearing. We're gonna receive comments regarding a request to authorize the filing of an instrument to vacate a public utility easement located along the common lot lines of lot 89 and 94, Edgewater Beach, Section 2, a subdivision in Precinct 3. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gomez and a second by Commissioner Howard, I believe. And all those in favor of opening the hearing say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Do you want to lay this out for us, Anna?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anna Bolin, Travis County TNR. The purpose behind this request is to vacate this public utility easement that was put on the plat as a plat note. And the reason that is being, we're doing that, the applicant wants to be sure that any future buildings do not have encroachments into that easement. Whenever we get a request to vacate a public utility easement, we hear from, or we make the applicant reach out to all of the utilities that are present in that area and let us know if they are, if they're in agreement with the request or if they need something else. We have heard that there's no objection from any of the utility companies, and to my knowledge, there's no objection, period, to this item. We find this meets our requirements, and we recommend this motion or this item for approval.
Thank you. Any discussion, court members? All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Shea moves approval.
Well, do you want to close the public hearing first, commissioners?
Yes.
Sure, and let me just double check. Audrey, do we have any callers on this item?
We have no callers on the line at this time, Judge.
Okay, motion from Commissioner Shea to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Gomez. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, the hearing is closed. And, okay, so item number 19, I'm going to call up to consider and take appropriate action regarding a request to authorize the filing of an instrument to vacate a public utility easement located along the common lot lines of lots 89 and 94, Edgewater Beach, Section 2, subdivision in Precinct 3. Anna, I guess is the same layout. Okay, nothing new to add. You're on mute, I think. Okay,
It's the
nothing.
same.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a
Sorry,
motion?
it is the same, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion on this item?
That's been my motion, yes.
Okay, motion from Commissioner Shea. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Gomez. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you, Anna. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna, without objection, I'm gonna recess the Travis County Commissioners Court meeting and convene the Bee Cave Road District Number 1 at 12:24 p.m. First, Bee Cave Road District Number 1. First, we have item number 2, authorize the county treasurer to invest county funds. Audrey, do we have any callers on this item?
No callers on the line at this time, Judge.
Do I have a, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, motion from Commissioner Shea, a second from Commissioner Gomez. All those in favor? It's a unanimous vote in support. Let's see. Last, we have item 3 to approve the minutes for the Travis County Bee Cave Road District Number 1 voting sessions of September 15th, 22nd, and 29th, October 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th, November 2nd, 10th, 17th, and 24th, and December 1st, 10th, 15th, and 22nd of 2020. Audrey, do you have any callers?
No callers, Judge.
Move approval.
I have a motion from Commissioner Shea, a second from Commissioner Gomez. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. I adjourn the Bee Cave Road District meeting and reconvene the Travis County Commissioners Court meeting at 12:25 p.m. All right, so the Travis County Commissioners Court will conduct an emergency meeting to consider and take appropriate action on supplemental emergency agenda items. We're going to begin with item 1, which is to receive a briefing and take appropriate action on emergency response and operations relating to the winter storm and severe weather conditions and disruptions caused by the severe and freezing weather and its aftermath and recovery efforts. We have Chief Emergency Management Coordinator Eric Carter and Emergency Medical Services County Executive Chuck Brotherton here to provide a briefing to the court. Do you guys want to go ahead?
And Judge, this is Anne Marie, just to interrupt, you had announced that calls would be taken before any items were discussed. Do you want to see if there are any callers?
Sure. Let's do that. Thank you, Anne Marie. Audrey, do we have any callers on this item?
We have no callers on the line at this time, Judge.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. Okay, Chuck and Eric.
So, Judge, Chuck Brotherton, I'm the County Executive for Emergency Services, and thanks for the opportunity for us to brief the court. I've asked Eric, of course, to be here, who is our Chief Emergency Management Coordinator. I've also got the other Travis County executives on the line over our different areas of service so that they each can brief the court on their activities. I, like you, Judge, am sitting here in the Emergency Operations Center. Our EOC, which is a combined Travis County and City of Austin facility, has been stood up since Sunday. And we have been working the response throughout the week. Lots of different things going on. What started out as a severe, extreme cold weather event, with all of the sheltering that went along with that and transportation related to the sheltering, is now beginning to transition into a water crisis that we are now pivoting to begin dealing with. So I think I will ask Eric to give y'all a brief on activities here in the EOC. And from there, we'll go to Paul Hoppengardner to talk about facilities. Eric, Paul, and I can all talk about what we're doing for water distribution, and we will get to that shortly. But first, we just want to catch y'all up. And then after Paul, we'll move to our TNR executive, our Health and Human Services executive, and then any other questions y'all might have. We have our public information officer here as well, and Hector has been deeply involved in this. So we're all here and available for your questions. So Eric, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, good afternoon, Judge, Commissioners. If you can't hear me, please just let me know, but I'll try to step through a summary of where we are, where we come from. We're actually in day 7, if you really want to get technical around it. We started looking at the weather system and starting to monitor it closely last Friday. And here we are a week later, and we're actually rolling pretty intensely in our current operations. Of course, we've seen some extreme weather, probably the most extreme I've seen since I've lived in Texas. And with that extreme weather, we've experienced extreme and unprecedented impacts, at least as it in our area, and I'm sure it's fair to say across the whole state of Texas. What began with a deep concern for human life with the extreme cold and a sheltering operation began to roll into compounding impacts when we started experiencing challenges with our power grid. Of course, that led to further cascading impacts where it impacted our ability to deliver both gas for warming and water for drinking. So over the last 5 days, we've been working extremely hard, not just as a government, but as a community, to respond, to protect life, to help people stay as safe as we possibly can for as many of us during this extreme cold. And again, the loss of critical infrastructure that we've experienced, the power, the heat, etc. Again, I mentioned the impact of the electrical grid being its cascading impacts, how it provided severe challenges, not to the individual endpoint homeowners, but across the community. The loss of that put an extreme impact on not just the internal heating, but the gas companies and their ability to deliver gas. So we saw some restrictions there. I believe by midweek, when it came to water, we were seeing up to 23 water providers issue boil water notices across Travis County alone. So that's just giving you an idea of the footprint across the county as far as some of the impacts. Some of the water systems are slowly beginning to make their way out of the darkness, I'll call it. The Austin city water system, of course, being the biggest, has the biggest footprint, and their wholesale customers, a lot of them cover many of the communities outside of Austin, adjacent to Austin. So those folks are all impacted by that system having a boil water notice. We're starting to turn our attention to that area as far as the emergency delivery of water. Speak a minute about the initial response to the extreme cold. I think it's important to share. We had multiple shelters opened across not just Austin, but across Travis County to provide warming centers for folks. And I personally you can't recognize everybody, but several of our groups really stood out. The Austin Independent School District really jumped in there with their ability to open up centers and sites. That was a great big help. Our emergency services districts have been doing yeoman's work in dangerous conditions, limited resources, fuel, dangerous, treacherous roads they're having to travel on. So hats off to those folks. The communities, the cities across Travis County have all had to activate EOCs. Pflugerville experienced extreme impact. Lakeway, BKs, we've heard of those. And of course, the communities up in the Jonestown, Lago Vista area literally cut off because of the ice on the roads and the inability to get resources to them. And those folks are all been pulling together to really get through this time frame. And my hat's off to them. We've seen a surge of volunteers. You know, this isn't the kind of disaster that any city or any county alone would have the resources to manage and keep under, you know, even with the staff we got hired. So it really was a all hands on deck, and the community has turned out to provide those extra hands. So my hat's off to the volunteer community that is across Travis County and Austin and across the whole county that have been providing 4x4 drivers, that have been working in shelters, working in warming centers to keep all the folks that we have in those facilities safe, keep them warm to the extent we can, keep them fed, etc. So we've done a lot over the last 5 to 7 days with the emergency sheltering phase. As we move forward, we're now on Friday, but we've obviously started midweek experience and could recognize we're going to have a problem with water. So we've been making moves to pivot, as Chuck said earlier in the intro, to the water delivery phase. That's just going to be critical, and there's a lot of logistics and moving parts around that. We're surging to try to get water into our resource staging area and very quickly pivot that out to both points of distribution across the county, as well as targeting those high hit, high need areas that we can identify based on intel we're getting from the community and where we're hearing that there is those high areas. And of course, beyond this, we're already trying to project forward. We know there's going to be a long road. I don't want to call it a long road, but we're going to be at the water delivery business probably for the next 7 days, if not longer. I hope we're out of the sheltering business as a matter of temperatures rising by the end of the weekend and allowing people to get back into their homes where they may not have water in their homes, but they do have power. The grid, of course, ERCOT announced today that they've ended emergency conditions. So that's a bit of good news in this whole affair. That allows folks to get back into their homes and start their own personal assessments of where they are. Of course, we're going to be doing everything we can as a emergency operations group to provide as many resources as we can to the community to help with that recovery.
And Eric, let me, if I could, just jump in for a minute.
Please.
Folks, Court, I'd like to give you all maybe just a few facts and figures to help you understand just how, what we've been doing. Regarding sheltering, today we have 14 shelters open and 4 warming locations. And as Eric indicated, those shelters come from City of Austin recreation centers. We've got several of our Austin Independent School District schools involved. We've got the Del Valley ISD involved. And we also have our Austin Disaster Relief Network with 7 churches that have stepped up to open their doors across the community. And so the shelters remain open. Those shelters will be in place as long as they are needed. We do not have plans at this point for closing anything. We recognize that even while people might have power restored, they may not have water and they may not have a safe home to return to. And so we want to make sure that we are keeping that sheltering opportunity available as long as it's needed. We are moving again to get water in. Again, thanks to Austin Disaster Relief Network for helping us. It's a City of Austin, Travis County volunteer effort that is underway. We've got 1 million gallons of bottled water that are inbound to us right now. Today, what we are hoping to do is distribute a portion of that, a small portion of that, to some very severely impacted, targeted areas to address some urgent needs. But more importantly, we will begin standing up a point of distribution sort of hub and spoke model starting tomorrow. Again, details to come. We are working actively to get those plans in place and get the resources in place for moving that water to what we call the pods. So that's happening. Again, shout out to all of the volunteers who are helping us, all of our emergency services district who are helping us. Power is 96% restored by Austin Energy. There are still pockets of outages. I happen to live in one of those pockets. I've been here at the EOC for several days. Austin Water has published an outage map, and I'm happy to share my screen just to show that to you. And if you'll just bear with me for 1 second, I will find that screen to share. I want to talk about it just a little bit. Okay, I think y'all can see that now. This is Austin Water Utilities map. This shows their different zones. What they're saying on this map is that the red zones are by color code. Those are areas that are experiencing water outages, and the yellow zones are experiencing low pressure. In speaking with Austin Water earlier today, and I want to stress that this is the City of Austin Water Utilities map. This is not a Travis County map, but we're trying to just provide some information and as we understand it, but qualifying that to say that we don't speak for Austin Water Utility. But I live in one of the red zones, for example. I checked on my house last night. It is dark, but there was water pressure in my house. And I was very happy about that. But a lot of folks are experiencing no water pressure, and it has to do with, as the Austin Water Utility begins refilling its system, as the water fills from the bottom of the cup or the bottom of the bowl up, if you will, those folks closer to the top of the bowl experience low pressure or zero pressure. And we have to wait for the system to complete filling up before everybody's water pressure is restored. It's my understanding that is the reason for the boil notice, is that as the system repressurizes, much like turning off the water in your house, when you turn it back on, you might see rust coming out of the taps for a little bit as everything sort of clears out of the system that had emptied. So in an abundance of caution, the city has issued a boil notice for that purpose. And they will not tell us at this point exactly how many homes are experiencing zero pressure. They may not know, but that information hasn't been released. Nor have they provided us an estimated time to repair, though they certainly are working on it as diligently as possible. I don't want to open it up for questions quite yet. I'd like us to move on through the briefs if we could, and I failed to mention that we've got Travis County Sheriff here as well. I believe Major Wes Pretty is here, and I think y'all should hear from the Sheriff. And if Sheriff Hernandez is on, I'm sorry, I didn't see earlier, Sheriff, but either Sheriff Hernandez or Major Pretty, if y'all would like to update the court on what's been happening in your jails as well as with your patrol units across the county, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chuck. And on behalf of Sheriff Hernandez, we appreciate the opportunity to brief the court this afternoon. Good afternoon, Judge and Commissioners. I also have Major Smith waiting to talk about the patrol functions. As I'm the major over the Admin Support Bureau, I'll be speaking to admin support functions as well as corrections functions, and I'll try and give you as brief an overview as I possibly can on that. Just as we found ourselves in the midst of the COVID dilemma with this weather event, we certainly know that or anticipate substantial cost drivers for our budget relating to the staffing issues, the overtime, food delivery, the water deliveries, and things of that nature. So, I think it's important to note that's something we're going to be dealing with. And I know that's not just our department, that's probably all the county departments in some form or fashion across the board, but just wanted to get that out there. I'm going to be speaking to just kind of a higher overview on some of the damage we've had within our jail facilities. It's important to note that we maintain our own maintenance within the jails, aside from what facilities management does outside of the jail operations. And so that's a part of our budget, and it is a budget driver for us. Kitchen operations and staffing challenges as well. I wanted to hit on those and highlight as quickly as I could. Just as Eric talked about having all hands on deck, the sheriff's office has certainly risen to this occasion and brought all hands on deck to make sure that we're keeping our facilities secure and delivering the need and meeting the needs of our inmate population. So real quickly, I'd just like to cover some of the damage that we've experienced. We've had burst pipes, pump issues, both domestic water, chillers, and sprinkler systems that we've been dealing with within our facilities. We've had roof leaks, both at TCJ and Building 12. Domestic water leaks in multiple buildings at Del Valley. Sprinkler system leaks and malfunctions at multiple buildings also at Del Valley. And that includes our training academy, which experienced some substantial damage, and we may be looking at possible displacement of those training operations. Fortunately, we did get approval from the court earlier to set up some virtual training ability for our training academy, and we're hoping that we can grow that out and utilize some of our other sites that we have within our system to still deliver the training that we need to deliver. Speaking of water issues, TCJ and Central Booking, they've had low pressure, so we've had to contend with that and develop contingency plans to deal with that low pressure that we have. Of course, operating any kind of a high-rise facility as the Travis County Jail is downtown presents challenges when you're dealing with low water. And so we have booster and jockey pumps that we've been able to utilize to bump up that water pressure, but we still have contingency plans in place, and working with our county partners at TNR have staged additional water, non-potable water, for us to use to make sure that we can flush toilets and things of that nature. But that's still a very labor-intensive prospect if we get to that. Also, just wanted to hit on the staffing issues that we've encountered. We certainly initially had people that could not make it to the facilities. We had folks that were working double shifts. I've heard of some folks working up to 20 hours as we tried to develop a plan to get staff in. We pulled together better than I've really ever seen this agency pull together across all bureaus: patrol, courthouse security, transportation, and our hospital visitation unit all pitched in to get staff and vehicles on the road to safely go pick staff up, essential staff, to get them to the jail to relieve folks that had already put in numerous hours of work. We also worked with our partners at EOC and our finance folks to secure some hotel rooms. We had hotel rooms, or motel rooms actually, out in close proximity to our Del Valley site that we procured and kept throughout this event, so that folks that couldn't make it back or needed to get a quick turnaround to get back to work, they had a place to go sleep at. We also put up some cots in our chapel area for staff that just needed to also get a rest and grab a few hours of shut-eye before they could get back to work. While I'm on that, I'd like to thank our associations as well, the LEA and the SOA, who pitched in to also reserve some rooms for our staff, both downtown and out around the Del Valley area. So we appreciate their efforts to keep our staff secure and provide for their needs. They also stepped up and provided some meals for staff too, which was greatly appreciated. So some of the challenges we experienced were getting staff in to clear pathways, both at our downtown facilities, but more importantly, at our inmate mall out at Del Valley, to make sure that the nurses that we did have on staff could push their med carts and do pill deliveries at the different buildings. And so that was quite a challenge, but staff pitched in. They found shovels. They got out there. They cleared the path, and the nurses that were able to do their job. And so I think that's noteworthy and something that they should be applauded for. So I think I've covered most of the highlights. I do think that it's important to note also that we have medical vaccines. I was speaking about COVID earlier, that are starting today for our inmates that are in the 1B category. That is, we're able to get that going today despite the challenges that we've been facing due to this weather event. One other thing real quick, as y'all know, the inmates are not able to boil their own water. This presents quite a challenge. They're totally dependent upon us to get them clean drinking water. And so our staff were quick to move on that and make sure that we had bottled water coming in, and that we had coolers and boiled water in our kitchen that we could deliver to all of the housing units to provide inmates clean and safe drinking water throughout this event. So I wanted to work that in as well and just make a note of that. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yes, Commissioner Shea?
Thanks so much, Major Pretty. Can you see me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. Thank you for all the work that you all are doing and the care that you're providing. Did I hear you correctly that some of the sprinklers were leaking at the jail?
Yes, ma'am. Some of those froze as well. You know, they're pipes, and sometimes pipes that maybe aren't insulated in some areas in this Texas area that, you know, as well as we'd like for them to have been. So while the sprinklers are offline in some areas, our smoke detectors and fire detection equipment is still up and running in those areas. Staff have been advised how to properly proceed if there are any issues. It is noteworthy too to know that Jail Standards has been informed of all of these issues, and that that we are staying and remaining in compliance with jail standards and running the jail as safely as we can. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to also interject on behalf of Major Pena and her team that the corrections staff have done an amazing job on, number one, keeping Jail Standards apprised of the issues that are going on in the jail, but also in creatively addressing a means to keep inmates with the few staff that they had at certain times. In a way, they quite frankly, they went from like a direct to an indirect concept on supervision and got that cleared through the Commission on Jail Standards to make sure that we remained in compliance and yet kept things safe, kept things warm, and kept the inmates fed and watered. So
that's great. I appreciate how hard your staff is working under very difficult circumstances. I had read stories elsewhere around the country where either because of frozen pipes or broken pipes and lack of water that toilets weren't able to be flushed in jails. You did say something about low pressure. Has that caused a problem with the sewage or the toilets at our facility?
No, ma'am. We stayed on top of that. As I said, we did build in some contingency plans with the thought that we might lose that water pressure totally. We never did. To my knowledge, we never did. And so we were able to get our booster pumps going and raise that water pressure so that it was not an issue for us.
That's excellent. And no real loss of power at the jail. Is that because we have redundant systems or we had generators? Can you just speak to that really briefly? How is it we didn't have a problem?
We're given a priority on the grid so that we are one of the last that end up losing power. If we did lose power, we do have generators that we can do backup for, but we've never found ourselves in that predicament.
And we didn't have a hot water boiler system like they did at St. David's, because my understanding is that that's part of how they lost heat at their medical facility. They were a priority, they were on power, but I guess because they lost water to their hot water boiler. Is that, how do we heat our facility?
Yes, ma'am. No, we have different systems in different buildings, but to simplify, our boiler systems, our heater, hot water systems did not go down on us. We did have a issue, I think, with one of the chillers that froze up, but that's not really a concern for us right now. Ours would be, but yes, ma'am.
Well, and I know the upgrade is going to be making the systems there more efficient. So thank you. I appreciate it, Major.
Hey, I'm actually in a court session, so I can't talk much, okay?
All right.
You're on mic, Eric.
What's the 2 o'clock call?
Yeah, we can hear you, Eric.
I will try, yes.
Okay.
I got to get up.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does any other commissioners have any questions for me before I pass it over to Major Smith and law enforcement? Okay, thank you all very much. Major Smith?
Thank you, Major Pretty and Judge and Commissioners. I'm just going to give you a quick overview from the Law Enforcement Bureau of what we've seen on the streets since this weather event began. From the start, when the Emergency Operations Center was activated, we've kept staff from our Research and Planning Office as well as a law enforcement supervisor inside the EOC 24/7 since that time. That helps us share information, that helps us quickly gather information from all of our partners within the EOC and then get that out to the various supervisors and patrol shifts. One thing that we did prioritize is, even though the judge was gracious enough to close most of county operations, we did keep all of our law enforcement buildings out in the community open. We staffed those with sworn staff. We wanted to ensure that in the event that anyone had some type of an emergency in the community and either couldn't call 911 or for whatever reason walked up or drove up to one of our law enforcement buildings, we wanted them to know that those buildings were open and that we could get them inside and help them take care of those emergencies. That did work out well for us because we did have some people that completely lost power, lost water, phones died, and so they drove to the nearest police station, and then we helped them with transport to cold weather shelters. They didn't know what else to do, so having those buildings open proved to be very beneficial, and we will continue that. The way we deployed to be prepared for this incident is we took all of our specialized units and basically kind of shut down any operations that were extra. So for instance, our lake patrol staff, all of our traffic staff, even some of our SWAT team, our estray livestock unit, everybody was redeployed back out onto patrol. So we were able to double up our numbers on patrol to take care of calls for service. And again, that's been going on since this weather event started and will continue probably throughout the weekend. And I expect we'll go back to some type of a normal schedule Sunday or first part of next week. The other thing we're able to do, you heard Eric Carter talk about the cold weather shelters. I know, I believe Chuck Brotherton spoke a little bit about that as well. We've been staffing 4 of the cold weather shelters with 2 deputies each every night from 8 p.m. until 8 a.m. Since those shelters were open. That's been somewhat fluid because you probably have heard that some of the shelters lost power, lost water, and they've had to shuffle people around as well as some of those resources. So we've had staff able to help with that and then maintain security at those facilities. Luckily for us, a lot of our offline units drive trucks, and TNR helps us out. And typically anytime we buy trucks, they're 4-wheel drive trucks. And so that has become very beneficial over the last couple of days, getting to some areas that were almost impossible to get to in regular vehicles. So to give you just an idea of what we looked at or have been looking at up to this morning from the weather-related event, we worked 210 collisions, 262 assist motorists, 191 traffic hazards, and responded to 65 calls for service related to cruelty to animals. To kind of put that in perspective, we chose the same time frame on these dates back in January, and we worked less than 100 collisions during that same time frame. So we're over double the amount of collisions. And we even got to a point where when people called in, if the collision was minor, we told them if everybody is safe, if no one is injured, go home, and when we get through this, we'll then help you out with all of the paperwork. So even that 210 number does not represent all of the collisions in the county. Another important number comes out of our dispatch center. During this same time frame, they received 7,015 911 calls. Comparison back to January, same time frame, 3,700 calls. So double the amount of 911 calls. And then they got 4,460 admin line calls, which also is doubled up. That's anybody calling in on the non-emergency number. So dispatch has been incredibly busy. Our patrol officers have been working to help get those civilian staff to and from their home, back, to dispatch and back home, along with some of our corrections staff in trans and I believe our hospital visitation unit. That was a big concerted effort to help get dispatchers in and out, because without our dispatch center, obviously everything shuts down. I want to point out that the other thing important to that is we are definitely working on a lot of overtime right now. That's going to have an effect when it comes to cost drivers and budgets. And so we are tracking that with emergency codes in SAP, and we're also utilizing ICS forms to track details of what everyone is doing. And we're submitting those through our research and planning office so that it will be available at the EOC if and when we get to a point where we might be able to look for reimbursement for total expenditures of the county. And then lastly, I just want to mention, unfortunately, during this event, crime does not come to a halt. And yesterday we worked an aggravated kidnapping and aggravated sexual assault case on 969 East. And our patrol was able to respond quickly, I believe, because we had so many people out working. They got a good perimeter set up, and one of our UAVs and canines was able to track down that suspect in the snow, and we took him into custody. And this morning, currently, we are working on a homicide that occurred in the Wells Branch area. It appears to be a homicide-suicide, but I don't know that to be fact just yet. And, it's just kind of unfortunate. One of the things that we did find, and I don't have the numbers, but anytime we have critical incidents that force people to stay inside their homes for extended period of times, we notice that our calls for service related to disturbances and family disturbances do go up. And it does appear that this homicide is a result of a family disturbance. So these really pull, especially a homicide investigation or an aggravated kidnapping and sexual assault. They are very manpower intensive and pull a lot of staff. So I know that you all have heard me say before that we don't easily handle, because of staffing, more than one critical incident at a time. Luckily, with us redeploying everyone the way that we have, we've been able to manage. We've got a big group of people working that homicide, and yet we're still keeping up with the collisions and things like that. I will tell you that as of this morning,
Major Smith, I'm sorry. I think we're going to need to move on pretty quickly. We have actually a big 5 call here in a minute, but I'm going to have to jump on. Do you have a couple more things to say, and then we could move to the next subject?
I'll leave it at that, Judge, and just ask if anybody has any questions. All right. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity.
I did have a quick question, Major Smith. Do we have any idea how many deaths are a result of this, either from fires, carbon monoxide poisoning, freezing? Is there any tally on that?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can find that for you, and I'll email all of you.
Thank you.
And Major Smith, thank you very much. Judge, I know you have, and several of us are supposed to be on the 1 o'clock call. So I would just like to say that, commissioners, we will be back with you on Tuesday next week at your regular voting session, and we will be able to continue this update. Judge, did you want to go ahead and adjourn this and wait until Tuesday for further updates?
No, Chuck, if you have more updates for the court, let's go to those.
Okay, well then why don't...
Can I just clarify, did we take action on extending your emergency order already?
Not yet, I don't believe.
We have to get off this call. I can't remember if we did that or not.
Actually, it may have been in consent. Anne Marie, can you, let's see. I think it must have been in the consent. No?
It was not. We're on the emergency meeting items, and that's item number 2 under this agenda. So if you want to call that up and take action, you can do that.
Okay. Why don't we do that just in case?
Yes.
Well, yeah, in case I have to drop, and then Chuck, you can continue with the updates after that. So
okay.
we're gonna pause on item 1. I'm gonna call up item 2. It's the extension of the declaration of disaster as proclaimed by the county judge on February 14th, 2021, and supplemental disaster declaration on February 16th, 2021. Audrey, thank you, Commissioner Trevelyan. Motion.
And just, Judge, to clarify, the motion for continuation is not going to include the supplemental disaster declaration of February 16th, correct?
Okay. That is correct. Yep. And so we have a motion.
This too, sorry.
A motion from Commissioner Trevelyan, and who is the second from?
Shay. And how long are we extending this to?
Anne Marie, could you address her question, please?
It'll continue until terminated by the Commissioner's Court.
Perfect. Thank you.
And
I have a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Howard.
Because of the situation, I'm not able to currently see all the documents, but you just said something that something about one of the documents we were sent is not the document we're approving. And I had just a question about some of the language in the whereases, or therefore, at the end, the sentence that said any official or staff basically can do whatever they need to further this purpose. I really liked that line, but I wanted to confirm if that's what we're approving.
I believe it's in the backup, whatever we're approving. I wasn't aware that there was some conflict in the documents, but Anne Marie, are you aware of something different?
I believe she said that the supplemental is not.
The only difference in the order is that the motion to continue the disaster declaration is just the declaration declared by Judge Brown on February 14th, 2021.
Okay, yeah, I can address that. So, yes, so this is the disaster declaration, declaring a state of disaster for the county, and it allows us to access funds and other things. 2 days after I entered that order, I entered an order requiring businesses not to light up their exteriors, like downtown if they're not essential businesses, manufacturers who are not essential businesses to cease operations where possible, where it didn't cause damage, and a couple of other items. It also included a order on price gouging and giving people remedies on price gouging under the DTPA. That second order on the 16th is still in effect, and it will stay in effect until Anne Marie, I guess, let me know when that will not take effect. But let me first say, I'm going to amend it slightly today because we have had word from Austin Energy that the power situation is not the same as it was when I first ordered that. So the part about manufacturing in Travis County, we're going to remove, and we're going to ask people involved in manufacturing in Travis County to first check with their power provider before they begin operations again, so that it doesn't cause a load on the system, either with Austin Energy or with Bluebonnet or whoever their power provider is in the county. So that is the reason why that order is separate. So the part about the lights will stay because Austin Energy has asked me to keep that order up, prohibiting businesses that are non-essential from lighting their exteriors during this crisis and until the power grid gets up to 100%. But the manufacturing part will end.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. So I am talking about the declaration, the first one, and it is the whereas number 4 that, if my memory is correct, says any official or employee can do all things to meet the needs.
Yeah, it's in
it's
the
just extremely broad to me.
It's in the therefores, yeah. Number 4, it says all Travis County officials and employees are authorized to do any and all things necessary or convenient to accomplish the purpose of this order.
Let's go, y'all. Let's do it. I've got my pen ready.
Is that somewhat standard language, Andy?
Yes, and it obviously doesn't give them carte blanche to do anything. It only gives it's in furtherance of this order. So it would relate to only the directives in this order is where they can do anything. And Anne Marie, do you want to correct me on that if I'm wrong?
That is correct, Judge.
Okay.
Within the confines of the order and the law. Yes.
It talks about temporary housing for people without.
Yes. Let's see. Trying to pull that up here.
And it is the vehicle that if we identified a need that we could meet, that the court has to convene to approve it, or I mean, forgive me, I've been 7 weeks on the job. How does it work?
So in general, Commissioner, it gives, after a disaster declaration, the county judge, and therefore the county, in effect, has the ability to do things like requisition property. So like if at Home Depot, we needed 100 sheets of plywood, we could request that from Home Depot. We still have to compensate Home Depot for that later, but we are able to, requisition that. And so I believe that's what it's getting at in that part.
But the phrase says all employees and officials. I've just never seen something like this.
Okay, Anne-Marie, do you want to comment on that?
It can be that broad if it's for this disaster declaration. And, part of this also activates and continues the activation of the emergency plan that gives powers to us to respond in these emergency situations.
So,
language that you can keep in the order or not?
I would recommend that we keep it in the order, would be my recommendation.
I would support that.
I would offer, Judge and Commissioners, while that is fairly broad language, we certainly always have to observe and follow all county purchasing practices and all of the other rules that are going so we do have things in place that are going to sort of restrict any single employee's ability just to sort of be out there wildly spending money.
And they're not able by law to commit funds by themselves, Commissioner.
There's another line that says you don't have to follow the purchasing kind of rules.
That's in provision number 5. In section 5, we address the purchasing.
So Judge Brown, this is Sherry Fleming. May I offer a comment?
Please.
Yeah, go ahead, Sherry.
He's muted, go ahead.
Okay, so Health and Human Services, by example, has a provision in policy that allows the executive over Health and Human Services to make certain decisions in the spirit of policy. And those decisions, especially as they speak to the expenditure of resources or assets, require that once that decision is made, that I notify you and give any court member the opportunity to say, I want this on the agenda for court discussion. And so I think while it's definitely in policy for Health and Human Services, I would feel confident in saying that is likely the practice that is employed by other departments should they have to make a decision swiftly. So I don't know if it helps or makes the situation more complicated for you to hear that.
Thank you, Sherry.
Commissioner Howard, can I just ask, is there a specific concern that you have? Do you think that this might be a carte blanche for people to go crazy, or I'm not sure what the concern is?
Yeah, I guess the concern is that the human need is so great. Many of you know that I've been sheltering with people who are experiencing homelessness. These shelters now are detox centers. We have people, that are now drug-free because they've been sleeping with us since Sunday. The human need and suffering is so great. And I do not want this community to put these people back on the street. because it's going to be over 35 degrees. And the order even talks about temporary housing. So I think we need to be creative and smart and compassionate. And my hat's off to every one of you. And the work is not over. And so I'm just learning and going to do everything I can to make sure we meet as much of the need as we can. So that, I saw temporary housing and I got my pen ready.
I did have a question about that. Thank you, Commissioner Howard. That's helpful. Chuck, I did have a question about the shelters. I have heard on several news reports that some of the shelters are not available. The warming shelters are not available for overnight sleeping. Do we know the situation with regard to that? Because I agree with Commissioner Howard. It is still going to be extremely cold for the next few days, and it won't be healthy or life-preserving to kick people out at night who don't have a place to go.
Commissioner Shea, we certainly hear that concern. Fact is, we've opened several shelters that are 24/7 and converted what originally opened as warming centers. For example, the city's Palmer Event Center originally opened as a warming center. It quickly turned into a shelter, and it maxed out at about 500 people, to the point where the city's fire marshal had to declare no more people coming in. So we have opened some warming centers really as a supplement. Some of them, knowing that they ultimately would have to be supplied with volunteers and materials and supplies to allow them to convert to shelters. But it's a best effort, and that's really how we're proceeding with this. I'd just like to give a shout out to Capital Metro, that has been a key partner for us in moving people between and among the various shelters, taking from a warming center, for example, to an overnight shelter, and they have not stopped helping us through this. The Travis County Constables, in addition to Travis County Sheriff, have been supplementing for security at the shelters. We appreciate that. And then relating to costs that were mentioned a little while ago, we have both a statewide disaster declaration. In addition, the Biden administration a few days ago declared a state of emergency in Texas. And so that does give us opportunity to seek reimbursement through FEMA for about up to 75% of the costs that we are spending to address this. So, yeah, we recognize that the shelters, the warming centers, they're going to need to remain open. We convert them as the need arises, but if we simply can't get supplies to a warming center, then we will move those folks who need to go to shelter. We will move them to shelter.
Chuck, I wanted to just mention that there are a couple of areas on the outskirts in Colony Park, for example, where people still cannot move their cars. And if they could move their cars, they don't have access to a lot of gas. Are we working on things with our warming center at like Dunlap, for example, to work and make sure that they can be transported, or to work with Cap Metro to see if they can be transported? Because having the center out there without the ability to get them to the center would be, maximize the use of the resource.
Absolutely, Commissioner. The Hornsby Dunlap Elementary School is really just a gathering point to move people from that part of the community in Del Valley to the Del Valley High School shelter, and that's what we've been doing there. But to your point about folks being stuck and unable to get to the bus, to get to the shelter, we've also got, again, the Austin Disaster Relief Network has organized volunteers with four-wheel drive vehicles and both an email address and access through Austin 311 to request rides to shelters or anywhere else, really. If you've got neighbors, family, friends who can provide you a warm place, that's what this resource has been stood up for.
Okay, I just want to make sure that people know how to access the resource, and maybe we can communicate. I will give you the name of the person who is communicating to all the neighborhood associations out there, and it's Tina Bynum, and I'll make sure that you have the contact.
Provide that, certainly, Commissioner.
All right.
So,
thanks.
Folks, in the interest of us giving you as much information as possible, if you don't mind, I'd like to move through our other executives so that they can each address their areas. So
I think we need to take a vote on the emergency.
Yeah, we didn't vote.
Oh, we haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Anyone? And Audrey, do you have any callers on this one?
We have no callers on the line at this time, Judge.
All right, thanks. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. And yeah, Chuck, go ahead. I'm going to throw one thing out there, just as an example of the ADRN. Is that the right acronym, Chuck? I mean, they've been absolutely amazing throughout this. One example, there was a woman or a family. It was a couple, a 10-month-old and a 2-year-old. They were living in an apartment north of 183. This was, I think, 2 days ago, right in the middle of it. The water had burst in the apartment above them. There was water on their floor. Through sort of the ADRN network, and they were able to get someone to pick them up in a 4-wheel drive vehicle, take them to Hutto, where they had a warm place to stay and live. And actually the driver that got them baby formula and some other things on the way. So I really can't emphasize how great an asset they have been and that they continue to be for all of us. But Chuck, go ahead, please.
All right, at this point, I'd like to ask our County Executive for Technology and Operations, Paul Hoppengardner, to give you an update. Paul, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Judge and Commissioners. Paul Hoppengardner, County Executive for Technology and Operations. I want to brief you today on the condition of the facilities management supports. First, I want to thank all the affected offices, departments, and their staff who've been working really hard and collaborating with us. And in no particular order, also thanking the facilities management staff, TCSO, Starflight Ground Operations, ESD2, the Austin Fire Department, Austin Water Utility, Purchasing, and TNR. As we've gone through this event, we've experienced a number of broken pipes to include sprinkler systems where a head will pop off, for example, in garages or inside facilities, HVAC systems that are frozen, and as you know, they're not designed for insulation for this type of temperature. And then other things that, along the lines of water that will impact. There are approximately 21 facilities that we're aware of at this time. The thing that I'd like to mention, I think is most important, is we don't know until the thawing is completed how many other pipes might be frozen out there. We're currently touring the buildings, checking them. We have water alarms in a number of the facilities that let us know when things leak. What I'm going to do is share my screen next and show you some of the facilities. I will be emailing you this document and making it part of the record. It gives an overview, and we're still assessing, and we have companies coming in to assist us to assess to determine what we need to do. Just a minute, let me share. Are you able to see the document now?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'll do is start at the top where the building names. I'm not going to cover each building, speaking about it directly. However, what I want to do is just make sure you're aware that there are 21 buildings on this. Some of them, the damage is interior, some of it is exterior, and some of it is in the repairs are in progress. The others may take longer to repair, but you can get an idea of the types of damage that occurred in those facilities. I'll scroll up just a little bit. And some of it is extensive and some of it's minor. And we've had some of the water extraction companies come in and the damage estimates are in progress. We'll be getting more information on a daily basis. We continue to work with leaks that are showing up. And what I want to say is that we'll continue to be diligent with that and work on those items. I'm available for any questions.
Paul, can you send, this is Commissioner Shea, can you send us the link to this list? I saw a very condensed version of some of the facilities that were affected, but if you could email.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will email the list to you all.
That would be helpful. You're right. I mean, this is a problem all over the city. People who haven't had water as it thaws may very well realize that their water pipes have cracked or burst, and then their homes will be flooded just as offices will be flooded. So this is a huge problem. And I don't know if anyone can speak to this, but is this the kind of thing that FEMA could potentially help with reimbursements for, both at the local government level and at the individual homeowner level? And if that is the case, what should people be doing? I know FEMA requires a lot of keeping of receipts and tracking of documents, but if you can just please speak to that so people have some idea how they might deal with the cost and the damage.
I think that might be more along Eric's line, if Eric's still available.
Just in the meantime, while you're getting there, if somebody does have a problem, they might think they have a leak problem, who can they call to cut the water off at the street? Because it takes a special instrument to do that, and most people don't have it. How can they get that done to minimize water damage in the house?
If they're within the city limits, they can call 311, and 311's been dispatching Austin Water. I will say, though, that they have sometimes had several days worth of calls. So I would also suggest perhaps that they check with their neighbors or other people. My understanding from just general discussions is plumbers are very difficult to find. So I'm afraid that working with their, other people in the neighborhood, perhaps their church group, neighborhood association, others. I've seen people post on Nextdoor and Facebook asking for tools and assistance along those lines. And they can also call their water district, but I think all of those options are fairly limited.
Are ESDs capable of doing that?
Yes, some of them are actively helping with it. I know of at least one ESD that's running a ton of calls to people's homes, helping shut off their water. You don't always need a special tool. In some cases, you can use a crescent wrench. KXAN has, I just Googled how to turn off your water supply. People can do this themselves, and there are instructions online if people just Google it. And there is one story on KXAN, I don't know exactly when this ran, but it explains, a plumber explains how to turn off water at your home in case of burst pipes. So there are resources available to people, but yeah, I think if they wait for 311, it's going to be a long wait. There are a lot of houses and a lot of buildings with problems. So people should look for additional resources and ask neighbors as well. But back to the FEMA question, have we gotten anything from Eric, or can anyone else fill that in?
Commissioner, yeah, just real quickly. So they've declared for, and Chuck referred to this, they've declared for sheltering and emergency response, which is what we're doing. For the individual assistance yet that has not been announced by FEMA, I suspect that they will, only because we are having such a hit to folks in terms of their homes and not in community buildings. But to that end, they should be recording all of the damage. If they are, obviously, if they have insurance, call their insurance providers to start that response. And then again, the volunteer network, the social service teams out there, they're mobilizing, have been mobilizing, and they'll be doing what they can to try to respond with supplemental assistance, whether it's replacing, clothing or things like that. They're ramping up as we speak. ADRN is part of the group that's doing that.
Eric, can I just ask specifically if people do have problems with burst pipes and water damage, do they need to take pictures both for insurance and for FEMA? And then do they need to keep track of all their expenses for if there is the possibility of getting a reimbursement beyond insurance from FEMA?
I think for the damage piece, the picture taking is primarily a benefit to FEMA first and, I'm sorry, correction, their insurance company first and foremost. As they register for assistance with the different volunteer agencies, they'll start that documentation. FEMA will have an 800 number they'll have to call if we get individual assistance. So they'll work them through that process, Commissioner. Any proof of documentation will be helpful.
People should keep track of all their expenses as a
Absolutely.
precaution. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this, Judge, the only other thing I'd like to mention is Chuck talked about a few minutes ago, is the system begins to fill up and pressurize. That will be in the same set of circumstances where we will potentially, for facilities that don't have water, discover additional water damage. But as I said, we're watching, checking those facilities, and we will be providing updates to the court in addition to sending out the document that I showed earlier.
I do have a question. I know we want to get through, and it's not clear to me who would be the right one to answer this, but I'm getting a lot of texts and seeing a lot of appeals for help with just access to water. The stores are out, and people are getting frantic about where they can access water. There is a KVU ran a story, and I reposted it on my Twitter and my Facebook, and also asked the county to share it, where a group of residents have crowdsourced information about places all over the city where you can go and get water. I've personally sent out notices to people who live within a radius of me to say, if you know of anyone who needs water, they can come to our house with containers and fill up. We have water, we've got low pressure, but we have water. So I think this is the kind of information people need to hear. They're waiting to find out where the Travis County water distribution sites are, but I don't know when the water is going to get here. I don't know where the distribution sites are. And if you can get water in the meantime from your neighbor, that's a lot closer and quicker. So if anybody has further information on that, it would be helpful, but I would just recommend, hopefully the Travis County social media can get that information out, but share this information with your neighbors. If your neighbor has water, you can get it from them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Chuck and Eric and the team, and on the city side too, Juan Ortiz and the mayor and everyone else, they have been working, I mean, literally 24 hours a day, I think with minimal sleep in between, to get water here. And I believe Juan and Eric were able to secure, as was said earlier, like 1 million gallons of water that is on its way here. And I think right, some is obviously, and Chuck and Paul are also working on that. Some is arriving today, I think, later today, more and more as the days come. I'm working with TDEM to get 2 truckloads of water from the FEMA site in Fort Worth that are hopefully going to arrive tonight. They've had some hiccups on loading it, frankly, but it should arrive sometime later this evening. And then
where people can access it. That's what I'm getting a lot of questions on. Great, it's getting here. How do people access it?
Commissioner, yeah. we're in the process of developing the pod, the point of distribution plan. Those pods locations have not been identified yet. As you can imagine, there's a lot of organization behind this. We went through it under 3 years ago in 2018. We had a boil water notice and a county-wide effort to distribute water. So we at least have that experience to work with. But again, the plan is in the works, and we will be making announcements and pushing that information out via press release and social media as soon as it is finalized. Paul, anything further?
No, sir.
Okay, if not, I'd like to look to our Transportation Natural Resources Executive, Cynthia McDonald. Cynthia, can you update the court?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We got you, Cynthia.
Okay, great. So TNR has struggled throughout this event. Unfortunately, we've had numerous equipment failures. We've had materials that are frozen up on us. And we did reach out to TxDOT and City of Austin, and they were helping answer some of the road sanding requests, and much thanks to them for doing that. We have been operational off and on both sides. I will say that west was down until Thursday. East was maintaining one sander at least until just recently. That is, I think we had one slide off the roadway and the other one is down. So ongoing repairs, ongoing coordination with City of Austin and TxDOT, and where we can get them back on, you know, our folks, our fleet folks have been working on getting them back up and running. In the meantime, we have had requests for assistance with other things that we've responded to. We have helped out with providing dump trucks to Austin Water for assistance with their water main repairs. We've provided backup generator, I believe, to ESD 8. We also had some requests from Pflugerville and I think one other location for fuel, which we do have available if it is needed for that ESD. And then we also have had folks shuttling, some of our employees have been shuttling folks back and forth to the work sites in their own 4x4s. We have also, I'm just scrolling through, so I apologize. As Major Pretty mentioned earlier, we were able to assist with a water truck for TJC. And we are responding to, I believe today we're responding to West Service Center sanding operations are ongoing and helping with water, food, and we'll be also helping with water delivery. So that's it in a nutshell. So we're up and down on the sanding, but as things get repaired, we're putting them back out. Staff has been able to get in just in the past few days, but my thanks to our 4x4 drivers within the TNR folks, and also I believe we've had other partner agencies step in to help shuttle folks back and forth, so thank you very much. But we continue and we will continue to do sanding operations. As far as the parks is concerned, of course they have been closed, but we have had staff out there to assess the situation. Looks like we will be able to open on Sunday for the most part, as opposed to the Monday that we originally anticipated. So we have folks going out there today, and we'll get some cleanup and maintenance going tomorrow, and we'll be ready to operate on Sunday. So, end of report.
Thank you, Cynthia. Commissioners, any questions? I would like to thank Cynthia and the TNR team. They have been a constant presence here in the Emergency Operations Center. There have been some frustrations. Certainly, we've got some material to work through when we get to the point where we're doing an after-action review on this. Everybody's aware that neither Travis County nor City of Austin owns a snowplow. We have trucks and sanding materials, but as we continue living through extremes in weather, it seems likely that these kinds of events are going to become more frequent. So the county will have to consider how we might address these kinds of risks going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do want to note that one of the challenges, not just for TNR, but even for City of Austin and TxDOT, as they were going through, particularly on the west side of the county, due to the topography, it is very, very difficult to navigate equipment up and down those windy and steep roadways. So we'll have to reassess what else we can do in the future for those kinds of terrain in this kind of weather. So agreed. Thank you, Jeff.
And Cynthia, I'd like to thank your team. Y'all have been very resourceful in reaching out to the city, and of course the city has been responsive in TxDOT and helping us get some of these roadways sanded in our western and eastern communities. So.
Yes.
And Chuck, I do just want to point out TNR environmental staff and a number of staff across a lot of different county departments are in the process of conducting a climate vulnerability assessment. And we now have a good roadmap, because this is important for people to understand. This is not an isolated incident. I saw someone refer to this as a once in a lifetime occurrence. Well, no, it happened in 2011. This is more severe, but it was similar in 2011. So this is the kind of extreme weather that we are going to have to prepare for. So that's part of what we'll be identifying with the climate vulnerability assessment to try and better prepare our government operations and our community for this kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Let's see, Sherry Fleming, our Health and Human Services Executive. Sherry, could you update the court?
Yes, thank you, Chuck. Sherry Fleming, County Executive for Health and Human Services. And as you all probably imagine, Health and Human Services has been working to support sheltering operations. So that includes staffing, but it also includes the process by which we reach into the shelter guests to determine their needs for a safe return, if a safe return is possible. And so I would have you know that those efforts are ramping up as we speak. We, of course, are doing this in partnership with Austin Public Health and a variety of city and county departments. But I think I'd like to take a second to just note that as we ask residents in our shelters these questions, it sometimes creates some anxiety about how long the shelter will or will not be open. And so I do want to say both publicly and to all of you that the implication is not that the shelter is closing. It is an assessment of needs that people have, because of course, as you all have demonstrated today, you know, elected officials and folks who can help want to know what those needs are. And we know that folks in our shelters are at various stages of need. You know, we have folks in our shelters who, you know, will be able to return home and thankfully maybe not find any damage, all the way to folks in our community who will need assistance with housing, you know, once they are able to assess their situation. So I thought it important to say that publicly, that because we will be asking these questions in the shelters, that it does not necessarily mean that you know, there's some date set for shelters to be closing. We have continued to also appreciate the help of ADRN staff, more specifically for Health and Human Services. We, one of our partner vendors had food that we could get out to the community, and ADRN volunteers showed up to help package that food and get it ready to go. And so we certainly appreciate them. They also have been responding en masse at the shelters, and so we appreciate them for that. And it also has included you know, community volunteers, but those volunteers are professionals. We have social workers, for example, in that group of volunteers who are responding. So we continue to appreciate that and thank them for partnering with us. We have also been in contact and participating in planning with Austin Public Health to try to bring vaccine administration back online. So that's just a small look at what we're doing, as of course things start to open up and our residents are able to move about. That is when the significant work for Health and Human Services begins. And so I just would have you know that your team is ready. We are appropriately partnered and we're looking forward to providing assistance. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Hey, Chuck, I'm going to jump in real quick. I just got a call from TDIM. They are literally flying a C-130 to Austin with something like 28,000 bottles of water. It's supposed to arrive at like 2:45 today. So that's a good improvement for the water situation. And I think we're going to still coordinate the same way with the same pod system, Chuck, that you're working on. But that actually ramps up our available water a lot, and we're going to do everything we can to get that out immediately.
And where can people go to find out information about what the distribution sites will be?
Commissioner,
Travis?
Thank you for the segue. I was just getting ready to ask our public information officer, Hector Nieto, to update the court. So, Hector.
Good afternoon, members. So just to give you a quick update of what's been going on with the Public Information Office, we have been tied in to the Joint Information System at the Emergency Operations Center since it was activated over the weekend. There have been long hours for both myself and Eugene, also while trying to coordinate our own struggles at home. We have seen over on social media, the Public Information Office has posted over 30 posts regarding what's been happening with the emergency. We've been coordinating with the City of Austin to make certain that it is the same message that we're getting out. Additionally, there have been 12 updates to all elected and appointed officials to the county, updating you all as soon as the information is known to us. We make certain we get that to you all. For the incoming water, I know that's the biggest question that is coming about. As soon as the pod locations are determined, and as soon as we know the hours of operation, we will get that information out, not just through the Joint Information System, but we will put that up on our social media sites as well. Please understand that information is coming at a fast pace, and we are trying to get it out as quickly as possible, but more importantly, changing that or updating with new information as we get it as well. So anytime you see something in your inbox or on social media from the county, it's because we just got that information as well. But we will be working with our media partners to make certain that we get this information out. Both myself and Eugene have been communicating with reporters pretty much on an hourly basis over the past week, and this is not just obviously your standard 8 to 5 hours. I've been in conversations with reporters early in the mornings, and by early I mean 2, 3 in the morning. Also, everything going up to our regular operating hours. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions with regards to information for any of you that have it. Go ahead, Commissioner.
So to find the unmute button. So just to reiterate, where can people go to get information about where the water distribution sites will be?
As soon as points of distribution are determined, we will post that information on our social media accounts. We will also share that information with our media partners through the Joint Information System. But again, we want to make certain we have the locations first because we want to make certain we are giving out correct information.
Yeah. So the Travis County TX Twitter, Travis County Facebook.
Yes, ma'am.
And the news media. So people should pay attention to that to find out where to get water. And in the meantime, there are other sources posted about local businesses and neighbors who can share water from their homes or their businesses.
Yes, ma'am. And we understand that the need for water is there. I can say from a personal experience, I completely understand. But we want to make certain we get this right and not just fast. And so right now we're appreciative of our business partners that have been helping us out, and so we're grateful to those, and we want the public to know that we are getting these up and running as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Judge, at this point, that concludes our briefs. We are here for any questions that you and the court might have.
Thanks. Thanks, Courtman. So I'm sure we've all got our own social media. Everything that Hector puts up, I'm putting on the Travis Co. Judge Twitter handle. So it's Travis COJUDGE. Everything will be on there about pods as soon as Chuck and team get it up there. And I know that we're working as hard as we can. If we as soon as we get water in the county, across the county line into Travis County, we will start getting it out, working with ADRN to physically get it from the hub to the distribution points. I mean, they're all ready to pounce as soon as it arrives here. I know that, just a couple of other items, there, as far as the plumbing issue, one thing that will come up, it always comes up in disasters, is that there are sort of fake plumbers or fake fly-by-night construction companies, and I think we all need to keep an eye out for that, that if someone comes up and offers you plumbing services or rehab to your home that has been destroyed by water, be really careful never to pay somebody like an upfront fee before the work is done. If it's someone that's not based here in Austin, you know, look and do some investigation and make sure that they're a legitimate company before entering into an agreement with them. I think that's something that is sadly really prevalent in disaster areas. Court members, do y'all have any questions for Chuck or other county staff before they depart? Okay, thanks. And Shay, did you have something? Go ahead.
Really just a word of thanks. I so appreciate how much our staff has been working. And Chuck, it sounds like you've been living out of the EOC. Anyway, we just really appreciate all your efforts, and please pass the thanks on to your staff as well, who have been.
I certainly will. Commissioner, thank you very much. Yes, deluxe accommodations out here at the EOC, but we are thankful, you know, that that the folks here who need to continue working at least have, you know, warmth and working plumbing and food, and when so many in our community do not. But we all take this very seriously.
Thanks, Dave.
Judge, if there's nothing else, then thank y'all, commissioners, Judge. We appreciate your time. We will be back again on Tuesday, and meanwhile, you all know how to reach us, so please don't hesitate. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chuck. Commissioner Gomez, did you have anything?
No, just say thanks to everybody, please. Really appreciate it.
Terrific. I guess just a couple other items, like, so the Emergency Operations Center, at the first day or so of this, I think there were maybe about 40 people in the upstairs, then it turned into 80, and now it's, I think, over 130 people on a daily basis. Some community partners, like, frankly, P. Terry's and Taco Deli, stepped up immediately to feed all of them and make great donations. People from Starflight, from Chuck's team, have been out here sort of as an emergency response team. One of them took me last night to the Central Texas Food Bank when they had a pipe break, and we're having their first food distribution is also happening today. So that was a really tense situation last night, but because of Starflight's good driving, and it was not the helicopter, it was a county four-wheel drive vehicle, but they took me out there, and we got plumbers out there and they fixed it. I also want to give a shout out to Mayor Adler and everybody on the city council, who I know also has been working nonstop, in addition to the great work that Commissioner Howard has been doing, helping people shelter. Commissioner Shea, I know, has let people stay in her home and is giving out water, and Commissioner Trevelyan and I are working on this food bank effort today to get food out. And I think there's a distribution point in Dove Springs, thanks to Commissioner Gomez, distribution point in I think all precincts represented here today. And want to give a special shout out to the Plumber and Pipe Fitters Union Local 286 for jumping into action last night to help fix that issue at the Central Texas Food Bank. They were really great. Commissioners, do you have any statements or questions or anything about kind of what's going on over here before we sign off?
Judge, I wanted to thank our other, jurisdictions, the small cities, especially out west, who have dealt with just numerous, gas providers. I think they've really pulled together well out in that Lake Travis area, and just my hats off to the mayors and the fire chiefs and the police officers and their staffs for working around the clock and being good, partners. Also, Rollingwood and Lakeway, and it just goes on, right? And so, I think the whole reason we have an EOC is because we recognized at some point that there's many factors that need to come together and work well. And, you know, that's just true across the board. If you can't get down the road, you can't fix the gas. If, you know, if there's no heat, the things freeze. I mean, it's so all related. And I just really appreciate how folks have pulled together. And when we're frustrated, to try to, you know, be frustrated at the issue and not the people. And so trial by fire, or, you know, or by frozen. And we'll just have a lot to work on after this. And for now, it's just a lot of love and appreciation for how hard everybody's working with what we got. Thank you.
Judge, if I could, I just want to say that this is a time that we really do have to be patient with each other. This is a time where many parts of our communities suffer from structural deficiencies. A lot of the problems that we are seeing today have occurred for years and years and years and years, and they will not be fixed today. So what we need to make sure that we do is that we send in our requests to the proper groups, that we give those groups an opportunity to respond. I know that we've had a couple of places where, you know, people have not, the groups or the food bank, for example, has not been able to deliver the food yet. They will, but we need to give them time. We need to give the volunteers time to receive it, to put it in a place where people can get it, and then to give it out in an orderly way. You know, it is important for us to be as courteous as we can and to recognize that everybody is struggling now. Everybody. It's not just one group of folk. So let's be careful not to push too hard when people are trying to help us and assist us. This is going to be a bumpy ride. We are learning as we go. So we're doing the best that we can to get to everybody that we can, but be patient because it's going to take time. And be careful. And for heaven's sake, if we know of elderly people in our community, let's go check on them.